you think of a time when you were in a bit of trouble? Maybe you hurt yourself, or maybe you got lost or were frightened. And then someone came along and helped you. How did you feel about that person who helped you? I suspect you were very grateful to that person. Hello everyone, I'm Kathleen Pelly. Welcome to Journey with Story. Since this is Thanksgiving here in America, a day where we all reflect upon our blessings and for what we are most grateful, I'm sharing a story which is all about a fierce lion who is very grateful to the runaway slave who helps him in his time of need. Mums and dads, grandparents, grown-ups, remember, you can find lots of activities related to this Thanksgiving theme on my website at www.kathleenpelly.com. Let's take a journey with Androcles and the Lion, a fable by Aesop. Long, long ago, at the edge of a desert in the country of Egypt, which in those days was ruled by the Roman Empire, there was a slave whose name was Androcles. Every day, Androcles had to work from dawn to dusk, doing whatever his cruel master commanded.
"Hurry up, slave! Get my horses and chariot ready. Be quick, slave, bring me more food. Fetch my sandals. Where's my breakfast? Why must I have such a fool for a slave?"
Day after day, poor Androcles had to listen to his master's taunts and jeers, and sometimes he even had to endure the sting of his master's whip upon his back. But one day, Androcles decided he could bear this life no longer. He knew the penalty for any slave who tried to escape his master was certain death, so he resolved to run far off into the desert where no one would ever find him. That night, Androcles slipped out of his master's house and crept through the alleys that snaked through the city. At the first light of morning, Androcles reached the edge of the desert, and he began his long trek to freedom. He had taken a little food from his master's house, and that was enough to sustain him for 2 days. But on the third day, the food was gone. "I don't care," Androcles thought. "I'd rather die of hunger than go back to my master's house." The winds rose up and swirls of sand blew into his eyes, making them sting and smart. "I don't care," Androcles thought. "Better this than the sting of my master's whip." At last, thirsty and exhausted, he came to a rocky hillside. Deep in the shadows loomed the opening of a gigantic cave. Slowly, quietly, Androcles stepped inside, watching and listening for any hidden dangers. The cool rock floor soothed his hot, throbbing feet. A spring of fresh water slaked his thirst. All seemed still and quiet. "This is the perfect place to hide," thought Androcles, as he made his way further back into the cave. But suddenly, a huge shadow blocked the entrance. Androcles froze, rooted to the spot, as an enormous lion silently padded toward him. Androcles quaked with fear as he saw the beast's eyes ablaze and heard its heavy breathing. The lion bared its razor-sharp teeth, and Androcles prepared himself to die. "How could I have escaped my cruel master?" he wailed, "only to be eaten alive by a lion." Crouched low in the corner of the cave, Androcles waited for the lion to roar and pounce upon him. But the lion did not roar. The lion did not pounce. Instead, the lion moaned and crept forward slowly, slowly, holding out its paw as if pleading for help. "Oh, you are hurt," said Androcles, as he saw a huge thorn embedded in the flesh of the lion's paw. The lion groaned in pain, and at once Androcles' fear vanished. "Don't worry," he said as he patted the lion's great mane and reached for its paw. "I can help you." He gripped the thorn tightly, and with one quick move, he wrenched it free. The lion lay down on the rocks and began to purr like a kitten. It licked its wound clean and then licked Androcles' face in gratitude. Androcles laughed, and the two of them curled up together in the cool, dark cave and fell asleep. From that day forward, Androcles and the lion were the best of friends. During the day, they hunted for food together, and at night, after they had eaten, they lay down to sleep safely in their cave together. Androcles was happier than he had ever been. He was free. He had food and shelter and the companionship of this loyal beast. For 3 years, Androcles and the lion lived together in great peace and contentment. But one day, as Androcles was dozing beside the cliffs, a Roman soldier stumbled upon him.
"A runaway slave! A runaway slave!"
they shouted, and they pounced upon Androcles and took him prisoner. Androcles looked around for his friend the lion, but he was nowhere to be seen. The soldiers took Androcles to his master's house, but the master waved them away.
"I have no use of him now. Take him to Rome and throw him to the beasts."
Now, in the city of Rome, there is a grand arena called the Circus Maximus. It was there that slaves were taken to be punished. Crowds of people would watch as wild animals, which were kept in cages behind the walls, were let loose to attack the poor slaves. On certain days, the Emperor Tiberius would visit the arena and enjoy delicious food and drink while watching the beasts maul the slaves. On one of these days, Androcles arrived at the Circus Maximus. A soldier led Androcles into the arena as hundreds and hundreds of people roared in excitement. Androcles heard the snapping and snarling of hungry animals waiting to be let loose.
"Halt! Wait there!"
the soldier ordered after Androcles had reached the centre of the arena. Androcles looked up at the emperor as he ate his figs and drank his wine. Tiberius raised his hand. The crowd fell silent. Androcles waited, trembling.
"Begin!"
commanded the emperor. The heavy metal gate opened. An enormous lion strode out into the arena. It shook its magnificent mane and pawed furiously at the ground when it saw Androcles. The people went wild with excitement. Androcles fell to his knees and awaited his dreadful fate. With one deafening roar, the lion lunged forward, but then, suddenly, it stopped and stared into Androcles' eyes, and in that moment, the two old friends recognized each other. "It's you!" cried Androcles. "It's really you!" And he wept with joy as the lion licked his face and hands and wrapped his huge paw over his shoulder. The crowd broke into cheers and applause to see Androcles and the lion rolling on the ground in play. Once more, the emperor raised his hand for silence.
"Bring that slave to me,"
Tiberius ordered. With the lion at his side, Androcles walked toward the emperor.
"Tell us, slave, why has this lion spared your life?"
The emperor listened in silence as Androcles told him the story of how he and the lion had become faithful friends. Then the emperor rose from his seat and declared, "The people shall decide whether you shall be put to death or set free." He ordered Androcles' story to be written on tablets and carried around the circus so that everyone would know what had happened between him and the lion. Androcles held fast to the lion's mane as he waited and waited and waited to hear what was to become of him. Then the crowd began to chant, "Free them! Free them! Free them!" The people had made their choice. Androcles and the lion marched out of the arena and into the streets, where the people cheered and clapped and showered them with coins and rose petals. From that day forward, everyone who saw the pair declared, "This is the lion that was a man's best friend, and this is the man who healed the lion. Androcles and the lion were free at last. This is one of Aesop's most popular tales, and it's based on a real life incident that took place long, long ago during the reign of the Emperor Tiberius in ancient Rome, where once a lion really did spare the life of a slave. So, in keeping with this theme of Thanksgiving gratitude, I would like to say a huge big thanks to our wonderful audio editor Colette for the tremendous work she does to bring all these stories to life with her music, her sound effects, and her own creative spin. Thank you, Colette. And I'd like to say another huge big thanks to Ivan, who is our artist and creates all those wonderful images for every single story you hear. And finally, I would like to say a huge big thanks to all of you, my loyal listeners. I am most grateful for all of you. Happy Thanksgiving. Cheerio then. Join me next time for Journey with Story.